to Weekly World News on SpringNectar TV, brought to you by Vibha Ramesh, Los Angeles, United States. First, the top headlines. Pfizer COVID vaccine gets full approval from FDA. Breach of promise by British ministers, Brexit challenges. Iran to adopt foreign vaccines as it reels under fifth wave. Zy-Cov-D to hit Indian markets soon, confirms Union Health Ministry. Atlantic coast sees blue whales after 40 years. Moving on to news in detail. An important milestone in the times of the pandemic was reached on Monday as Pfizer got full approval from the FDA. That makes it the first COVID vaccine to get full approval, while most others are still being used under emergency use authorization. Even as President Joe Biden made the announcement and termed it another milestone, a key milestone in our fight against COVID, he urged the unvaccinated Americans to get their shots. In the words of a Pentagon spokesperson, now that the Pfizer vaccine has been approved, the Department of Defense is prepared to issue updated guidance requiring all service members to be vaccinated. Meanwhile, catastrophic flash floods lashed the rural areas of Nashville, Tennessee on Saturday, causing unprecedented damage and loss of lives. Several people were trapped in their homes and did not find a way to escape. According to the latest news, at least 21 people have been found dead and over 40 missing. Prompt response came from the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency as it activated its Emergency Operations Center, thereby deploying the Tennessee National Guard, the State Highway Patrol, and Fire Mutual Aid on the scene. Passing on his words of consolation, Governor Bill Lee's tweet read, "Tennesseans, please stay cautious of rising floodwaters caused by heavy rainfall in parts of Middle Tennessee. We're actively working with emergency response officials and first responders as they support Tennesseans in flooded areas." In another instance, Tropical Storm Henry landed in Rhode Island on Sunday with high winds and thrashing rains. The storm concentrated mainly over the northeast with a downpour of nearly 10 inches. Several parts were impacted with loss of power. According to Chuck Watson, a disaster modeler with Enki Research, Henry was not at all like a traditional hurricane. This was basically an extended rainfall event with a little wind thrown in. And by Tuesday, the storm had mellowed down to a post-tropical cyclone with 25 miles per hour of winds, and lights in most part of the regions were restored. That said, if one were to translate the damage caused into monetary terms, it would run into billions. As Joel Myers, founder and CEO of AccuWeather, predicts, the economic loss from Henry could be around $8 to $12 billion. Moving on, the single case of COVID in New Zealand has now accelerated to 210 new cases as of Wednesday, all of which were caused by the Delta variant. The largest city, Auckland, is the most impacted with 198 infections. News has it that the service at Samoa Assembly of God's Church could have been the super spreader event that sparked the spike in new infections. The 4-day lockdown that the country was in has been extended and is now converted to a level 4 lockdown. That said, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern tried to maintain calm in her people as she remarked, "The number of cases has grown again, but given the large number of locations of interest and what we know about Delta, this isn't surprising. We've always said that cases would rise before they fall. We do expect cases to continue to rise through to next week before they start falling away." Moving on, India became the first country to approve the world's first plasmid DNA-based anti-COVID vaccine, Zy-Cov-D, for emergency use. To this extent, Union Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia confirmed the news on Saturday. The vaccine is manufactured by Zydus Cadila, an Indian multinational pharmaceutical company, and would be administered in 3 doses. All individuals over the age of 12 are eligible to take the shots. Meanwhile, around 168 people, out of which 107 were Indians, were evacuated from Kabul on Sunday. The Indian government has taken an extensive measure to bring back Indian nationals from Kabul, especially in the light of the diminishing security situation in Kabul. To that effect, 6 countries, including the UK, United States, Germany, France, and Qatar, have consented to shelter Indian citizens in their countries from where India will bring them back home later. In another instance, Afghan refugees in India protested in front of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees over the war-torn nation. In that context, several hundred demonstrators shouted slogans like "We want future," "We want justice," "No more silence," and the like. And in Kabul, twin blasts that were executed at Kabul airport have left at least 60 civilians dead and several fighting for their lives. Sources say that at least 12 US troops were among those that died in the blast, while at least 15 injured. More news on the deadly attack will be shared with you as it unfolds. Over to Brexit. British nationals with foreign spouses are facing a roadblock in securing post-Brexit rights. During pre-Brexit times, people could move freely from one member state to another. However, that freedom of movement changed post-Brexit, and non-British spouses of UK citizens are now required to apply for pre-settled status by the end of March 2022. In that context, ministers have been accused of breaching their promise, as several citizens who have married foreigners are struggling to get family permits, thereby unable to return home to the UK. Subsequently, campaigners at British in Europe have filed a petition to the Foreign Office Minister, apprising them of the problems being faced over their rights. And on the COVID front, the UK's death toll currently averages about 100 per day, and officials are anticipating a spike in the number with the reopening of schools. Although the vaccination drive has made a difference by reducing the number of deaths, there has been a significant rise in May and June, which puts the country at the risk of another spike. Over to Iran. The country is currently knee-deep in the fifth wave of the pandemic and far behind in their vaccination rate when compared to the rest of the world. Consequently, President Ibrahim Raisi has been urged to widen the sources of vaccines. According to the dashboard as of Wednesday, the country recorded 665 deaths and 39,983 new single-day infections. With a diminishing supply of vaccines and the need to vaccinate the entire population by February next year, the country would require around 120 million doses of vaccine. That said, only 6 million of the 85 million people in Iran have been double-jabbed. According to Bahram Alahi, the proposed Minister of Health, 85% of the factors are outside the scope of control of his ministry, and hence he's called for localization of the management of the disease. And in Greece, the unvaccinated population will now be barred from entering entertainment venues. In view of the threat from the rampantly spreading Delta variant of the virus, the Greek government announced that starting next month, people who are not vaccinated will not be allowed into indoor eateries, cafes, clubs, and bars. This is one among a slew of stringent measures that the Health Ministry unraveled as the country fights a surge in the number of coronavirus cases and related deaths. Per the new regulations, unvaccinated workers in public and private sectors would be required to take at least one rapid test per week, and those engaged in the entertainment business as well as in academia will have to undergo rapid tests twice a week. The cost of a rapid test would be €10, and only students will be eligible for free tests. As the health minister put it, these measures aren't punitive. They are our duty to all those who went through 18 months of the pandemic carefully, those who lost their shops, jobs, and had to work from home to protect themselves. Meanwhile, Thailand has adopted a technologically advanced method that helps optimize vaccine supplies. To that extent, researchers have developed a machine to draw out COVID-19 vaccine doses more efficiently. Called the AutoVac, the robotic arm has been designed to draw 12 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine in 4 minutes. This translates to a 20% hike in the doses drawn out using the bot versus 10 doses drawn out manually. So how does that make a difference? Well, according to the lead researcher at the university's Biomedical Engineering Research Center, the extra 20% that we get means that if we have AstraZeneca for 1 million people, this machine can increase the number of doses to 1.2 million people. He also said that while some health workers using low dead space syringes that aim to reduce wastage can draw up to 12 doses per vial, it requires a high level of skill. This could drain a lot of the health workers' energy. They would have to do this every day for months, he said. Culminating this week's report with greetings from the blue whale. Yes, for the first time in 40 years, blue whales are known to be returning to Spain's Atlantic coast. Between 2017 and just over a week ago, 4 blue whales were spotted near Oak Grove. Commenting on the sight, Bruno Diaz, a marine biologist, remarked, I believe the moratorium on whaling has been a key factor. In the 1970s, just before the ban was introduced, an entire generation of blue whales disappeared. Now, more than 40 years later, we're seeing the return of the descendants of the few that survived. That said, some people believe that their return may not be good news after all. As another marine biologist put it, I'm pessimistic because there is a high possibility that climate change is having a major impact on the blue whale's habitat. Firstly, because they never venture south of the equator, and if global warming pushes this line north, their habitat will be reduced. And secondly, if it means the food they normally eat is disappearing, then what we're seeing is dramatic and not something to celebrate. With that thought, I bring you to the end of this week's news report. I'll see you again next Friday with more world news on Spring Nectar TV. Stay safe.